President Obama is traveling to Havana next month. It's yet another step in the normalization of relations between Cuba and the United States. CCTV White House correspondent Jessica Stone is live at the White House with all the details. Jessica.
And Elaine, U.S. President Barack Obama is expected to meet with President Raul Castro of Cuba, the Cuban people, as well as Cuban dissidents. The main goal of this trip, to demonstrate progress towards normalization. In his last year in office, U.S. President Barack Obama will become the first sitting president to visit Cuba in nearly 100 years. The last American president to visit Havana was Calvin Coolidge, who arrived on a battleship. This time, the White House says Obama will visit aiming for closer ties.
A presidential visit is a forcing mechanism, and I think it has a potential benefit of making our government and the Cuban government do as much as we can to make normalization move forward.
Just days ago, Cuba and the U.S. signed an agreement to resume commercial flights. Cuba is allowing its citizens to start businesses, farm unused government land, and buy and sell houses at market rates. But deep restrictions still remain. American companies still want better access to Cuban workers and easier regulations to set up offices. Obama's critics say his trip will reward a government still closed off to many American values.
I think it's a real mistake. I think the president ought to instead be pushing for a free Cuba.
Mindful of the U.S. presidential elections, the White House planned the visit for March, giving the relationship more time to make progress while Obama is in office. White House officials say they'll also bring members of Congress along to encourage them to lift the trade embargo with Cuba. But Cuba's foreign trade minister said the White House can do more now, including allowing the dollar to be used in third country purchases of Cuban goods.
We cannot use the dollar to export sugar or nickel or whatever. You need to make references to the prices.
We want to look at what are the areas where we can open up space that can promote the greatest travel and commercial activity that ultimately, again, benefits the Cuban people.
Because U.S. officials acknowledge that a better Cuba-U.S. relationship will lead to better relations with America's neighbors.
I think the region will be celebrating, that the President of the United States goes there and is going to give a chance for Cuba to change over time.
Susan, obviously, this approach underscores the overall diplomatic approach of this White House, one of engagement as opposed to isolation, one that has been used in both Myanmar and Iran.
And Jessica, here we are in the United States in the midst of a presidential election. What's expected to happen if the next president-elect does not maintain the same policy?
Well, it's very clear that the White House is taking that into its calculation by scheduling this visit for March as opposed to December in order to try to cement any progress that's made in the remaining year of this presidency. And certainly increased commerce and trade ties would be much more difficult to unravel than a simple foreign policy across the board.